Dear students, we will discuss research problem in our today's lecture. It is lecture number 4 of the research methodology. In this lecture, we will discuss in detail what is a research problem and how to define research problem. Similarly, what are the techniques for selecting a research problem because in the research it is a very primary step, is a very initial step for the researchers. So this lecture can be fruitful for you, especially for those who want to pursue the research thesis for their degree. First of all, it is necessary to define what is a research problem. The first and most important step in research is selection and properly defining a research problem. Researchers begin a study by identifying a research problem that they need to address. It is the beginning of any research study. Every researcher starts the research with the statement of, with the definition of, with the identification of the research problem. For example, like a medical doctor, a researcher must examine all the symptoms concerning a problem before he can diagnose correctly. You should uh, you should get all the relevant information about the problem which you have faced, which you have observed, the issue which you have observed, the issue which you want to solve, for which you want to search the solution. You should get all the relevant information. According to Criswell, the researchers write about the problem in the opening passages of their study, and in effect give you as a reader the rationale for why the study is important and why you need to read this study. According to Criswell, he has well said that almost all the researchers give an introduction to the research problem in the beginning of their research, which give you the rationale for why this study is being carried out. According to Kotari 2004, a research problem refers to some difficulty which a researcher experiences in the context of either a theoretical or practical situation and want to obtain a solution for the same. According to Kotari, it is the research problem actually arises uh, because of the difficulty which you or any person or any researcher, any research student can face in a practical situation or in a theoretical situation, and which you want to resolve, which the researcher want to resolve. According to Kumar 2011, any question that you want answered and any assumption that you want to challenge or investigate can become a research problem or research topic for your study. He has well said, the Kumar 2011, that it is actually the assumption which you want to test, it is actually the hypothesis you want to test, it is the question which is in your mind about a particular phenomena, about a particular issue that being students of economics, you are all topic, you are all the issues, the issues which you want to discuss should be relevant to your field. The potential research questions may occur to us on regular basis, but the process of formulating them in a meaningful way is not an easy task. According to Powers et al., the questions may arise in front of you. For example, question may arise: why the government invests in health? Why government invest in education? Why government invest in infrastructure? Why government invest in the social sector? But to in order to state them in a research problem as a research problem is not an easy task. Similarly, so many other ideas may come to your mind, but it is not easy to 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 form them in shape of to shape them as a research problem. It might seem easy to formulate a problem, but it requires considerable knowledge of both the subject area and research methodology. You are students of economics. Being students of economics, you may note a problem. You may also want to solve that problem, but it need enough knowledge about the subject and the research methodology, how to find out how to investigate that research issue. What kind of data will you use? How will you collect the data? Whether it will be primary data, whether it will be secondary data, what will be the sample size, whether it will be panel data. These are not easy questions. Once you may examine a question more closely, you will soon realize the complexity of formulating an idea into a problem which is researchable. According to Kumar, a research problem identifies your destination. It tells you your research supervisor, it tells you, your supervisor, and your readers what you want to you intend to research. Means according to Kumar, your statement of your research problem, this shows a clear-cut picture to you, your supervisor, and the readers. The more specific and clearer you are, the better the research process. If once the research problem is clear to you, I often ask the students to clarify their mind about their research topic. Because once you are familiar with your topic, you acquire the relevant information, the relevant knowledge about that issue, then it becomes easy to form study design for it, measurement procedures, sampling strategy, frame of analysis, style of writing your dissertation or report. It becomes easy once you are clear about your research problem. Hence, you should examine it thoroughly, carefully, and critically. According to Sikara, the broad problem area refers to the entire situation where one sees a possible need for research and problem solving. We can have the different examples of the problems that a manager could observe at workplace and some other problem which you can observe. Training for if the manager sees that training programs are perhaps not as effective as anticipated. The sales volume of a product is not picking up. These are the problems which the manager can face. Minority group members in the organizations are not advancing their career. The daily balancing of accounting ledgers is becoming a continuing concern. The newly installed information system is not being used by the managers for whom it was primarily designed. The introduction of flexible work hours has created more problems than it has solved in many companies. The installation of an MIS keeps getting started. Remove this. For students like you can have the role of human capital, the role of FDI in human capital formation. Similarly, the role of human capital in economic growth of Pakistan. You can observe what is the role of the human capital in economic growth. Why we invest in education? Why we invest in R&D? These can be some of the examples of the research problems. According to Veliman 2011, there is no shortage of problems throughout the world, but for a problem to be researchable, it needs to have several crucial features. The problem which you are selecting must be stated clearly and concisely. The problem should be significant, not a repeat of the previous work. It must be delineated in order to limit its scope to practical investigation. Similarly, it must be possible to obtain information required to explore the problem. That is the reason that I often ask the students, the research students, to get the relevant information. Be sure that the problem which you are selecting, enough information is available about it. You should know about the sources of information. It must be possible to draw a conclusion related to the problem. Is the point of research is to find some problems. In the next issue is selecting the problem. That's also a very, very important step. The research problem undertaken for a study must be carefully selected. The task is a difficult one. It may not appear to be so. It may not seem to you difficult one, but it is actually a difficult issue. Before the selection of the problem, you should have enough knowledge about it. You should have the knowledge of the subject area. You should have the knowledge of the study area. You should have knowledge of the techniques which are to be used in solution of that problem. The problem must spring from the researcher's mind, like a plant springing from its own seed. If our eyes need glasses, it is not the optician alone who decide about the number of lenses we require. We must have to see ourselves and enable him to prescribe for us the right number of the right number by cooperating with him. The following points should be kept in mind while selecting a research problem. The problem which is overdone should not be normally chosen, for it will be difficult task to throw light on them. This is very important point to keep in mind while selecting a research problem, because nowadays most of the students face almost always the student face a problem in selecting a research problem, the research topic. So you should keep in mind that you should not go for to do something new. And how we do something new? If you have extensive study. Most of our students, they try to to adopt the shortest way, which ruins the basis of their research. And then they say that we are not getting the required result, we are not getting the required result, we are unable to complete our research. Research is very difficult. No, research is not difficult. Basically, you should have to be very attentive to it. If you have select a problem which is overdone, then either you are selecting it to copy the work, to copy the methodology, to copy the literature review, to copy the procedure. So the advice is that you should avoid the topic which is overdone. Secondly, controversial subjects, issues, problems be avoided by an average researcher. It depends on the researcher. If the researcher is an average researcher, he should avoid the controversial subjects and controversial issues because he may not be able to give expert opinion. He may not have these skills which are required for such technical issues. Similarly, the third step which should be kept in mind while selecting a research problem is that too narrow or too vague problems should be avoided. The research problem should be clear to you. The subject selected for research should be familiar and feasible so that related research material or sources of research are within one's reach. Every student knows, every researcher knows that because before coming to the research, he completes his coursework. So he should select such a problem which is relevant to the subject in which he has the expertise, in which he has enough knowledge. Because if he select a problem from a subject with which he is not too much familiar, he doesn't have enough knowledge about that particular subject, then he may face problem in not only the statement of this problem but also in solving the problem. Similarly, the importance of subject, the qualifications, the training of research, the costs involved, the time factor are few other criteria that must be considered in selecting a research problem. While selecting your problem, it depends on for which purpose you are selecting this problem. If you are selecting the problem for your research degree, then it depends on your time constraint. It also involves cost. It also involves the qualification and training of the researcher. So all these should be kept in mind while selecting a research problem. Before the final selection of the problem is done, a researcher must ask himself the following questions. He should keep in mind these questions: whether he is well equipped in terms of the background to carry out the research, whether the study falls within his budget he can afford. These are the almost the explanation of the first paragraph. This point number 5, that whether he can afford the budget, whether the necessary cooperation can be obtained from those who must participate in this research. The selection of a problem, number 6, the selection of problem must be preceded by a preliminary study. Now question arises, what is the necessity of defining the problem? Why should we define the problem? It is often said that a problem clearly stated is a problem half solved. If you have clearly stated a problem, this means you have done half. This statement signifies the need for defining a problem. The problem must be defined clearly as it will help to discriminate relevant data from the irrelevant ones. A well-defined research problem will enable the researcher to be in the fray as compared to ill-defined problem which may create hurdles. Many questions as given below must be kept in mind while defining the problem. What data are to be collected? What characteristics of the data are relevant and need to be studied? What relations are to be explored? What techniques are to be used for this purpose? It is easy to design a strategy when and find answers to ask such questions only if the research problem has been well defined. As I discussed in the previous slide as well, that if you have defined the problem well, if you have started the problem well, then it will become very easy to design the strategy, to have your research design and find the answers. Defining a research problem properly is a prerequisite for any study and is a step of highest importance. In fact, formulation of such problem is more essential than its solution. Dear students, now a technical step. You should keep in mind that these techniques for statement of your problem, for defining your problem. Number one, statement of the problem in a general way. First step of defining a research problem is that it should be stated in a broad general way. The researcher must dip himself thoroughly in the subject matter concerning which he wishes to pose a problem. As discussed in the previous slides, you should have the enough subject matter, enough knowledge of the subject matter before defining the problem, which you can do by extensive study. I told you in the previous slides that nowadays, today, most of the students try to follow a shortcut way. They avoid extensive study. So if you don't have extensive study, you will not be able to state your problem properly. In case of social research, the researchers can do field observation through some sort of initial survey or pilot survey. After this, the researcher state the problem or can seek the guidance of experts. Similarly, you can also get guidance from your supervisor, from the organizational authority, from the concerned committee. Understanding the nature of the problem. The second technique which is involved in selection of the problem is defining the problem is understanding the nature of the problem. The researcher must understand problem from its origin and nature clearly. The best way of understanding the problem is to discuss it with those who first raised it. If the researcher has stated the problem himself, he should consider once again all those points that induce him to make a general statement concerning the problem. Once you select the problem, discuss it with those who are very familiar with this issue, who are very familiar with this problem. You can discuss it with the experts. You can discuss it with your supervisor or supervisors, because you can have your co-supervisor as well. So the problem must be stated properly, and you should have enough knowledge. You should have perfect knowledge of your research problem. Serving the available literature. This is the thing which I again and again emphasize, on which I insist in my lectures, in my online lectures, in my on the campus lectures, that all available literature concerning the problem at hand must be surveyed and examined before a definition of the such problem is given. I recommend, when a student comes to me with an initial topic, I say and ask him, I advise him go for the literature review. I ask him to study the relevant papers. It is a difficult task to study a research paper at an initial stage, but you will have to do this in order to avoid complications in the future. This means that the researcher must be well conversant with the relevant theories in the field, reports, records, also other relevant literature. Because the literature review will not only give you a clear clue about your study, but it will also give you guidance about your model, your variables, and enough information about your research study. Developing ideas through discussion. A researcher must discuss this problem with his colleagues and others who have enough experience in the same area or in working with similar problems. This is quite often known as experience survey. People with rich experience are in position to land the researcher on different aspects of proposed study, and their advice and comments are usually invaluable to the researcher. This is a very important step, good step, that once you select a problem, you should discuss it with the experts, your colleagues, or those who are working in the area relevant to it. Rephrasing the research problem into working proposition. Finally, the researcher must sit to rephrase the research problem into a working proposition. Once the nature of the problem has been clearly understood, the environment has been defined, discussions over the problem have been taken place, the available literature has been surveyed and examined, rephrasing the problem into analytical or operational terms is not a difficult task. This is the final step that when we complete your discussions, we complete your review, you complete your research literature review, then you have examined thoroughly the problem, then it is the last step and easy step to state the problem. So thank you very much, students. You can give a reading to these books, very useful books, in order to know much about your research, in order to know much about the statement of the research problem. Thank you very much.